What's going on, Packers fans? Happy Saturday. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Packaday podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Packaday Podcast. We've got a great show for you today. It's an interesting show, one that has really never been done here on the Packaday Podcast before, at least nothing exactly like it. We'll get to that more in just a moment. Before we get there, some big news from Friday. Jayden Reed designated to return off of injured reserve. A huge boost for Green Bay. Not this weekend. He's not going to play on Sunday against Minnesota. I think it's rather unlikely that he will play Thursday against Detroit. But the following Sunday against Chicago, I think is probably right in the crosshairs of when Jayden Reed is looking to return. Maybe not impossible Thursday on Thanksgiving, but there's not really any practices between now and the Thanksgiving game. I have a hard time believing they're going to open up his window for one day and then have him basically not practice at all up until Thursday's game with the Lions and then just play. That probably doesn't seem like the most ideal scenario. So the most likely is that he plays the following Sunday at home against the Chicago Bears. Either way, just seeing Jayden Reed out there practicing is huge for the Packers and is a real boost eventually for that wide receiver room that could really use his run after the catch and playmaking ability, especially out of the slot and especially now that Tucker Kraft is done for the season. Meanwhile, we did get the final injury report as well. Out for Green Bay this week, the aforementioned Jayden Reed, as well as Nate Hobbs. He is a no-go again this week. Doubtful, and this is the big news here as well, Quay Walker. So unlikely to play this week for Quay Walker, which means Isaiah McDuffie goes into that full-time nickel role alongside of Edgerrin Cooper. He'll have the green dot. He'll be the one calling the plays, etc. That's a big time role now for Isaiah McDuffie, who quietly has had a pretty nice season. I do think the last few weeks it's taken maybe a little bit of a step down, but I thought early on he was playing really, really good football, and hopefully that continues this week when they need him most in a full-time role against Minnesota. That also means Tyron Hopper will take his spot in the base defense roles and likely play around 10 to 18 maybe snaps in this game. So we'll keep an eye on that for Tyron Hopper and Isaiah McDuffie, but likely no Quay Walker in this game. Also questionable for Green Bay, Dontavian Wicks and Savion Williams at wide receiver. Savion did not practice on Friday, usually not a great sign. I'm assuming Wicks will be able to go. We heard from Matt LaFleur that LVN is planning on playing this week, so that's huge news for him and this defensive front. Carl Brooks is questionable. He did finally practice on Friday. That's a potential good sign. We'll see if he's able to go. Josh Jacobs practiced for a second consecutive day. I'm at the point now where I'd almost be surprised if he didn't play in this game. I think the bigger question is going to be what type of, sort of snap count and load is he going to be able to carry in this game? And then Matthew Golden, also questionable. He's been limited all week. I think that's a really interesting one. If he does play, I think you're probably looking at a snap count situation for Golden as well. For the Vikings, a much easier and simpler injury report. Jonathan Grenard, their star defensive end, and Ryan Kelly, their starting center, are both questionable for this game, although Ryan Kelly was a full participant all week and Jonathan Grenard was limited but did practice the past couple days. So Minnesota could be very, very healthy going into this game. And if both Ryan Kelly and Jonathan Grenard are good to go, they're going to be locked and loaded and trying everything they can to win this game, which really feels like an elimination game for Minnesota. They lose this one, and it's going to feel like they are extremely behind the eight ball. So a little bit of a desperation game for Minnesota. Before we continue, I do want to mention Luigi's Pizza, who is partnering with us for today's show as well. I love every aspect of the Luigi's Pizza. I love that they have a whole line from their gourmet pizzas, their original pizzas, their Big Daddy pizzas, their garlic dippers. They're all incredible, but I love their ingredients. I love the people that I get to work with Luigi's. I love that they're from Wisconsin. We have awesome partners here at Packaday, and Luigi's is one of those. They do such a great job partnering with us. Make sure you are supporting them as well. When you're in the freezer section of your local grocer, make it a Luigi's. It's going to be your favorite frozen pizza. It's going to be. I love it. You're going to love it as well. And they do such a great job partnering with us. So again, make sure you're supporting them as well. Luigi'sPizza.com and on social media at Luigi's Pizza. All right, let's get into our main topic in our main show today. And that is a conversation with a Twitter handle and a Twitter account called Titletown Talks. There's an interesting backstory here. So the Twitter account is at Titletown Talks. It's got about 3,000 to 4,000 followers on Twitter. This is an account that, in my opinion, has been extremely negative about the Green Bay Packers towards myself and towards other people covering the media, covering the Packers media, covering the Packers, I should say, at times calling them frauds, amongst other things. This is a account that I had blocked a while back, just because I believe, I don't remember the exact reason, but I believe due to the overall, what I can kind of consider negativity of the account. This is an account that has been very upset about Matt LaFleur, the way that Matt LaFleur has coached the team, and very upset about the picture that circulated of myself and, Cheesehead TV and some other Packers media members, Tom Grossi, etc., that you can see on your screen right now, that was with Matt LaFleur. We'll talk about that event in great detail. This is an account that had a Twitter beef with Aaron Nagler, Cheesehead TV, amongst others. As I mentioned, I did block this account long ago. I kind of tried to avoid it. Recently had more beef with Cheesehead TV, Corey Benke, Aaron Nagler, kind of going back and forth a little bit with it. And I really, my gut feel, everything in my body was like, call out this account. Just tell people, like, stay away from this account, whatever. I decided instead to tweet this out. I said, quote, Titletown Talks, you seem to be mad at everything Packers related, everywhere, all the time, all at once. I promise you fandom doesn't need to be like this. It can actually be fun. How about you come to a pod with me? We'll chat through it. And I'll even tell you the full story of our wild night with Coach at Corey Benke's house. And you can get everything off your chest about us fraudulent people who cover the team. I'll have a beer. We did not have a beer. That's on me. You can bring drink of your choice and we can solve the world's problems. How does that sound? So why did I do this? I am somebody who believes ultimately that sports and the Packers in general are supposed to be fun. There's way too much fighting, especially amongst Packers fans. It's one thing to beef with a Bears fan or Vikings fan, maybe something like that. Even that, I would hope that people can recognize with our collaboration with the Paul Farrington show that can be fun too. One of my best friends is a Bears fan. I love those type of conversations. But I feel like sometimes we're so quick to argue and judge and throw each other under the bus, especially, again, when we're talking about our own team. Titletown Talks is a Packers fan account. We have very different ways about doing things. I don't see eye to eye with a lot of the ways that they cover the team. But Titletown Talks is not on his own. There's a lot of people who feel a very similar way towards Packers media, myself, Matt LaFleur, amongst others, and are very frustrated, angry, and upset with maybe how the season has gone, with maybe how the team is being covered, etc. And one of the things, and I talk about this with Titletown Talks as well, that I strive for is to have a variety of opinions on this show, not just mine. Everyone is open, to their say. And again, we have Vikings fans on this show. We have national, like Carmen Vitale people on this show. We've got a lot of Packers fans that are on the show as well. I think Paul Brettel does such a great job as a beat reporter covering the team. We have him on and get kind of his perspective on it. I try to get a wide variety of different opinions. And because there is a lot of people that are maybe feeling the way that Titletown Talks is feeling, and because he is upset, I wanted him to have the opportunity to voice his voice and his opinion and maybe be the voice of people that, maybe we don't hear from as often. And the other aspect of that is I just thought that, all right, I could call this account out and we can have this gap widen of Packers accounts that don't like each other or whatever. Or maybe we can just talk Packers for an hour and a half and maybe we'll come closer together. Maybe he'll see some things my way. Maybe I'll see some things his way and we'll all be better for it. That was my goal. I think we had a really constructive and fun conversation. That's why I did it. He accepted. We spent about 75 minutes talking about the ins and outs of my covering of the team, my role, what I can do better, Matt LaFleur, the future of the team, how the differentiators between media, how I get paid. We go through a variety of different topics. So this is a unique one. Like I said, I don't think anything like this has ever really been done before, at least not here on Packaday. But I do think it was educational. I think it was informative, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Now, Titletown Talks did request that he not be shown on camera, and he requested that we did not reveal his name. So I respected that. I did request kindly or for him to reconsider because, quite frankly, I think it's a better experience, especially for the YouTube channel. If you're listening on audio, doesn't matter all that much at all. But from a YouTube experience, I think it's better if both people are shown. And certainly, I think it brings a better level of credibility if you're willing to put your face and name to the account and what you're talking about. But that was his decision. And I stuck by it, and I certainly granted him that opportunity. And again, I more wanted to have that conversation. So it was important for him to come on and have that conversation one way or the other. And if he wanted to remain anonymous, then he will remain anonymous. And that's his call to decide when he wants to reveal himself to the world, I guess. As I mentioned, I did really enjoy this conversation. I think he did a really nice job. I think he had some fair and, unique questions, but I think fair questions. And we'll get into all of it. I hope you enjoy the conversation. I know I did. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Titletown Talks. All right, we're being joined now by Titletown Talks. We're going to have a interesting / fun discussion on all things Green Bay Packers. Titletown Talks and maybe myself have maybe a different way of looking at stuff Green Bay Packers wise. So I'm excited to get into this. One of the things that we always set out to do here at Packaday is to try to involve everybody's voice and give everybody an opportunity. And everyone's going to have a little bit of a different viewpoint, and figured today maybe we could get together, talk some Green Bay Packers and have some fun. So Titletown Talks, my friend, how are you doing?
No, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks so much for being here. What I want to start off by doing is, as I kind of mentioned, we're all Packers fans. And I think kind of one of the fun parts about this is we all have our own journey. I think everyone has kind of a different way of fandom, and they all have a different way of kind of coming up to that fandom. I think that way that they became a fan kind of shapes their outlook and perspective. So if you have the opportunity or have the ability to, I'd love to kind of have you share how you became a Packers fan and how you kind of started talking about the Green Bay Packers more, maybe on social media and whatnot.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Southern California. Not too crazy of a story, really. So pretty much I grew up without a father figure. My dad wasn't really around in my life. And my uncle actually has been a Green Bay Packer fan pretty much his entire life. And I think I viewed him as my father figure growing up,
Sure.
not having that in my life. And he would watch the Green Bay Packers play weekly, and I think we had a really good bonding time just watching the Packers play, and those are some memories I was really fond over. So before I even really started taking this team too serious, I remember just spending that time, watching the Packers play on Sunday with them. And eventually, once I got more interest into football overall, it became something that I really enjoyed and that I really loved, and something that became really crucial and part of my life that I kind of carried everywhere. I was the kid in high school, showing up with a cheese head on my head and all that type of stuff, So I've loved this team for a long time. Sorry, what was your last question?
How did you decide to, kind of start covering the team and talking about it on social media more and things like that?
Well, I talk about football pretty much all the time. My friends and I, we love football, but in Southern California, there's more Raiders fans. Rams are over here, but you'd be surprised in how low their fan base actually is. So I was I talk football all the time anyway. Why don't I just start a social media page and just start posting? I figured it probably won't go anywhere, but at the end of the day, I'm doing this all day anyway. Why not give it a shot?
Love it. That part of the story is very similar for you and I. For those who don't know, for myself, grew up I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, about 15 minutes ish from Lambeau Field. My parents had season tickets. First game I was at was the Brett Favre, Kittrick Taylor touchdown where Favre came in for Mikowski, basically baptized in the green and gold from there on out. And then, I kind of got done with college. I wanted to be a teacher. Didn't really work out that way because I moved to Madison. And, from there, just started working my way up kind of the corporate ladder. And on the side, I just decided I kind of wanted to talk about the Packers because kind of like you was talking about the Packers all the time to everyone who wanted to listen anyway. So started a blog, then it became a podcast and became, all this sort of stuff, and started writing for Cheesehead TV and so on and so forth. Eventually, just became from this really cool hobby into, kind of covering the team full time and just completely out of nowhere. So very similar in that regard of just a passion for it, started talking about it, and the rest was kind of history. So like I said, we very much have that in common. What team did you kind of come up watching? Are we talking Brett? Are we talking Aaron? What version of the team did you kind of grow up watching?
So I'm 24. I'm 24 years old. So I basically grew up during the entire kind of Rodgers era. That was when I started.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah. It's fun to hear everyone's background in history and story because everyone's kind of got a different entry point and everyone's got a different reason. And I think, again, it's cool for me going to the stands and my dad, holding me up over his head, to see the touchdown in the end zone to Kittrick Taylor, again, like from that point forward, it's as good as it gets from a Packers standpoint. I said I was basically baptized in it, and for you to come up in the Rodgers era and to see everything like that, again, we've been very blessed as Packers fans overall. So obviously one of the reasons that I wanted to talk today is because I know yourself and some of your followers, maybe not the hugest Packaday fans, and or maybe the way that I cover the team and or the way that other media members cover the team. There's just to give a little bit of more background here. I think that you're not alone in that feel. There's obviously the popular picture of some people in the Packers media sphere that were having a drink with Matt LaFleur. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, as well. But I wanted to give you the floor and the opportunity to either voice any frustrations or ask any questions or go in any direction that you want. I will apologize because and we'll get to obviously I have some questions that I want to ask you as well. And then we'll kind of talk about Packers-Vikings and get some predictions for the rest of the season and things like that as well. I want to apologize because usually when I have a guest on, I kind of make them the star of the show and ask them all the questions and everything like that. But I know you've asked your, kind of followers and so I want to kind of give you the floor and I'll let you ask any question or again, go in any direction that you want. And then we'll kind of go from there. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, sounds perfect.
All right, cool. So the floor is yours, my friend.
All right, so I think the first question that I have for you is a pretty popular one. I got it pretty often. And actually, this kind of correlates to what I'm going to ask overall because let me just ask the question. So the number one question I actually got from anybody who wanted me to come on here and ask is, why do you block everyone that disagrees with you?
It's a good question. It's not true. I do block a good chunk of people. It's not as much. A lot of the people that I block or like a lot of the blocks on my list are like literally like the spam accounts and things like that. So if you see my total block numbers, that's the vast majority of them. I do block a decent amount of people though. So I saw somebody else that followed up on one of your questions as well, basically asking, does he not realize that the more followers he has, the more money and views he gets and things like that? As I kind of said in my story earlier, I did this for fun. This was always about fun for me. This wasn't about, I didn't go to journalism school. I didn't go to any sort of sports, science school, anything like that. Right. I just talked about the Packers because I wanted to talk about the Packers. I apologize to some of my listeners who have heard this story before, but one of my biggest passions was not only the Packers, but was soccer and coaching soccer. And I coached my sister's soccer team. And it was the greatest. My favorite thing was to coach. And by age 20, I got a head JV coaching job with a high school nearby and an assistant varsity coaching job. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the most insane thing ever. I am getting to do my absolute dream. And now I'm getting paid for it. This is freaking awesome. Like this is the freaking dream. I'm 20 years old. I'm already doing kind of what I want to be doing. And imagine where I can go from here. And I got paid to do the job. And all of a sudden it became a job. And I had to do certain things at certain times, and it was no longer as fun as I wanted it to be. And I almost to the point where like I didn't want to do it anymore. And when I started covering the Packers, even though it was just for fun to begin with, the Packers have been sort of my constant, my big thing throughout the entirety of my life. And so one of the big things that I really, really wanted to be cognizant of is like, if this ever becomes not fun, if this ever isn't enjoyable, like I just have to stop because I want to be able to turn on a Packers game every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, whenever, and just enjoy the Packers and not have this dread of like, oh my God, I've got to, do a podcast or I've got to write about so-and-so player or whatever the case may be. So I've been very cognizant. I've been very lucky in the fact that no matter what I've done covering the Packers, it's been a joy for me. However, there are certain people online that for me sort of try to suck that joy away. And it's not that they disagree, it's how they disagree. There's never been anyone that has come up to me and said, Andy, I disagree with your take on Edgerrin Cooper, but hey, I want to see if you would maybe think of it this way or anything like that. It's, oh my God, you're such a freaking moron. What are you possibly thinking? You really think that Edgerrin Cooper is this? And so it's that sort of tone and it's that sort of version of disagreement or the over the top, like attacking of me personally, that to me, that drains the fun out of it. I'm in covering sports and I am in sports and love talking about sports. And it's my passion because we have such a weirdo world that we live in on a day-to-day basis that there's all the crap going on in real life right now that when I turn on a game or get to talk about Packers, I want it to be fun and interesting and entertaining. And that part of it to me sucks it away. So that's the biggest thing is it's never that you disagree. It's sort of how you disagree. It doesn't even have to be a disagreement. If I just see, I've seen people agree with me that have been huge, for lack of a better term, dicks to other people. And I don't want anything to do with that either. And then the other thing I will add just on top of it is, forgive me if I'm wrong. You're probably somewhere around like, I want to say maybe 5,000 or 6,000 followers on Twitter. Maybe it's more now 8, 9, something like that. Is that right?
No, I'm less. I'm at 3.4.
Okay. So 3.4.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot more engagement than my followers actually is. So, I mean,
sure, no, which is great.
There.
Which is great. One of the things that I quickly recognized is like, you have 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 followers on Twitter. And maybe one out of every so many people is rude or unkind or whatever. And it's not a big deal. That 1 to 3 to 5, whatever percent people that is, it's really easy to ignore. It's not a big deal. You get to 80,000 people and you have a percentage of that are rude or articulating, for my own mental health, if I'm being totally honest, like it would be if I'm walking down the street and somebody says, "You're an effing idiot. Why are you like, I'm going to try to get away from that person kind of as quickly as I don't want to have a conversation with that person. And I follow social media kind of the same way of like, are you engaging? Like we can have an engaging conversation about any disagreement about the Packers. Like that's fun to me. I'm happy to have those conversations. To me, it's all about how you go about doing it. And again, for my own sanity and just being able to continue to do this, I block rather quickly because of that, because I just don't want to go down that pathway. So that's the long and short of it. So sorry for the long-winded answer.
No worries. I think that's a perfectly fair answer. Being a small account at this point, I've seen a little bit of that, and I have thick skin myself. And I've been like, damn, like some messages, some comments, even I've been there like, damn. That's a good one. I've never thought about that. That's pretty creative, with the insults that they throw my way. But, doing this, I can relate a lot to what you're saying. Like if it ever doesn't become fun to you, it's just something that you don't want to do anymore. I think I'm just having fun with it. I don't really care if it goes anywhere. If it, if I have 10,000 followers or 3,000, I think having 10 people listen to me talk about the Packers and just throw my opinions out there, it's a pretty special thing.
Absolutely.
I don't care how many people do it. I just love that, some people do kind of like my content. So I understand that. I also understand because I did have a moment where I was seeing all those hate comments and I was like, damn. Then I just stopped caring. But I understand that you get it to a much higher scale. But I think there is some people, because this is a rebuttal that I've had a lot of my comment section. A lot of people say that you block them just for disagreeing with them. And actually, I was blocked. I was blocked, and I wasn't even really in your comment section like that ever. So I don't really.
And then I don't have a list of the why that I blocked every single person or what. Again, what I would say is I'm very protective of it. Maybe I don't have as thick a skin. I understand that part of it is part of the gig. No question about it. Yeah, so I honestly, I don't know what the original reason I blocked you was. I have no clue, if I'm being totally transparent. And maybe I shouldn't have, and that's a possibility as well. I'm sure there are people that I have blocked that I also, again, maybe didn't deserve it, or maybe I misinterpreted or whatever. I think the thing for me is that, especially like, I think the funny thing about, blocking is you're not allowed to not view me or view my tweets or anything like that, or even quote tweet them. Yeah. I think maybe you can't quote tweet. I can't remember, but like,
no, you can't quote tweet them.
Yeah. Okay. So you just can't reply or quote tweet. And again, it's just, for me, there's a level of toxicity that I don't want in my social media life. And again, maybe that's not fair. Maybe I shouldn't get to decide that one way or the other. But that's just the way that I've handled it. And again, I've unblocked people in the past if I've, seen whatever, if they've said, hey, I'm sorry if I offended or whatever. And again, I'm not asking you to grovel over, like, can you please unblock me, anything like that. But that in general, that's that's just been my sort of standard operating procedure.
No, I understand that. I think a lot of people sometimes are in your comment sections and they feel like they just have a disagreement or a different viewpoint, and they feel like you block them for that. Um, Obviously, I'm not sure like how much you actually do that, or how many of these people at the end of the day actually say something disrespectful or rude. Which I can't blame you. I can't blame you or anybody else that if they're just getting a bunch of hate comments there and it's just disrespect and rude, that you just want to block it because you don't want that negativity in your life. But I think, following this up to my next question, I think this is a pretty big reason. Some people feel like you guys block them because you have a difference in opinion. And it seems like you, Cheesehead TV, some of these other creators have larger followings. It seems like you guys are very consistent, just hyper defending the Packers. It feels like sometimes like you guys don't get as critical as you should. And a lot of people feel like you guys just share that mutual feeling. So I was gonna ask you about the picture that you guys took.
Yes. All right. But I want to comment on that other part. So in case I get away from that, let's talk about that shared, sort of people who cover the Packers tend to defend the team more sort of thing. I want to get to that eventually. But let's talk about the photo first. So here's the 1 billion% true and mostly boring story of the Matt LaFleur photo. So the first thing that I think, and if I'll put it up on the screen too for people who are watching, so if you're not familiar with said photo, you can know exactly what it is. That is a get together that Corey Behnke and Aaron Nagler host at Corey Behnke's house when Aaron's in town for training camp every single year. And that is for mostly like Packers media bloggers. They invite a lot of people. Some people show up, some people don't. The usual people that are there are Rob Demovsky, Pete Doherty, myself, Aaron Nagler, Corey Behnke, Perry Goldstein's been there in the past, Paul Brettel, Camille Davis has been there in the past. Wayne Larravee's been there, I think, the last couple of years. You can see him in the picture. Tom Grassi was there this past year. I think he's been in there in the past as well. Just a variety of different people who cover the Packers in a variety of different ways. This was like the 5th or 6th year. I want to say that at least I've been to it. They may have been hosting it prior to that. Maybe it's the 4th year. But that's like the 4th year that I think I've been to it, somewhere in that range. There's never ever been anybody from other than Wes Hodkiewicz is usually there as well. Other than Wes Hodkiewicz and I guess Wayne Larravee too, there's never been anybody from the Packers organization that has ever been there before. On that particular day, I was standing at training camp with Aaron Nagler prior to the get together that evening, and he just reminded me of it. And he kind of like was joking. He's like, "Just so you know, we invited Coach," and he, which would have been correct 99.9% of the time, correctly, or in this case, I guess incorrectly assumed. He's like, "Yeah, but there's no way in hell like Coach is actually showing up." But just want to let you know, we actually invited him. And I'm like, he's like, "We've invited other people within the organization in the past. Nobody's ever showed up." So we're having our normal evening, like every other evening in the 4 or 5 years before that we've done this, and everyone's just having a good time, exchanging stories, etc. And obviously having some drinks as well. And we're probably about 2.5 hours into this thing, maybe. And all of a sudden, knock at the door, and lo and behold, Matt LaFleur and a member of PR are at the door. And Matt, brought a bottle of wine, as one would do at to a guest event. And he did have an old fashioned first. I will tell people that. Yeah, so I know I see people. Oh, he had a glass. Yeah. No, he had an old. He had the Corey old fashioned. He got the experience. And that he stayed for probably about an hour. It was very quick, and nobody knew. At least maybe Aaron or Corey eventually got wind that he was going to be there. Nobody that actually myself, like Tom Grassi, Rob Demovsky, anybody else knew that he was going to be there. Of that hour that he was about about the only time that, or the conversations I should say, were like my son and his son are in the same age of basketball. We both have 6th grade boys that are in the same basketball league. We talked about basketball. That was actually, by the way, so obviously I get to ask him questions in press conferences. That was the very first time I ever personally got to introduce myself to Matt LaFleur. And that was up until this point, the very last time I have ever had any communication with Matt LaFleur outside of, again, a press conference where I'm asking him questions in the press conference. I think that's the same for almost everyone in that room. Now, obviously, Rob Demovsky and Pete Doherty, they're there every day covering the beat. They have different, I don't know what their connections are. I don't know what their, if they have any, sort of connection with Matter's agent. I have no idea, but nobody there was there to brown nose or to pick up extra credit with Matt LaFleur or anything like that. Matt was great. Again, he talked a lot about basketball. The big thing that we talked about is with my son in basketball was specifically, my son plays basketball and soccer. And we talked about how these coaches just want their kid to play one sport. And he's like, listen, all of these players that are in the NFL all played multiple sports. Every trainer, everyone will tell you play as many sports as you can. That was our big conversation. And then right before he left he was probably there for about an hour, maybe at most. Right before he left, I'm like, I'm probably never going to get the opportunity to ask this again. But I'm like, what is it that people covering the Packers most get wrong? That was the one Packers question that I had. What do we get wrong more often? Like that makes it hard for your job or whatever. And it was kind of a lame answer, if I'm being honest. He's just said like, well, you guys obviously get to cover it from afar and see it on TV or, from this, the press box or whatever. He's like, when you're down on the field and the bullets are flying, it's like, you've got to he's like, there's everything going on around you. There's all these decisions you have to be made and everything like that. He's like, it's not, you don't get the benefit of hindsight, which I'm like, well, yeah, I know that already. But that was the only Packers conversation that had the entire night. And he was just kind and, stayed an hour. And then that was it. He left. PR drove him wherever. I think he just they drove him home, and that was the end of it. And then the rest of us stayed and probably for a couple extra hours and hung out and talked Packers and whatnot. So that was the gist of it. I know there's people that are like, well, the conflict of interest. The first thing is, again, I will say I don't even think Aaron and Corey knew that. I knew that he was invited. I don't think anybody knew he was actually coming to that. And certainly not, again, the guys, the real media guys like Demovsky and Doherty and things like that. They had no idea he was even going to be there. The second thing I will say is that I didn't think of it at the time, maybe because I was about, 5 beers in at that time. I didn't think of it of like, oh, this is maybe not like an ideal, like, picture to have. I honestly don't think it really matters. And again, it was the entire thing was so nondescript. And so like, if any outsider was there watching it and be like, oh, I wonder what they're saying. It would have, if you're like, oh, I wish it could have been a fly in the wall. It'd have been like, oh, I got to hear, Paul Brettel talk about golf and Andy talk about his 6th grade son in basketball. And it would have been really boring for a lot of people. So that's what was kind of taking place. And if I had to guess, I have not talked to anybody about this. I bet, again, the sort of what I would consider like the true journalists probably didn't love that the optics and or the picture and whatnot. But I can tell you from being there, it was as nondescript and as whatever of a night as you could possibly imagine. And, Matt, like I said, left after about an hour, had his old fashioned. That was about it. And yeah, that's it. So I understand the optics of it. I understand of like how it looks like we're all in cahoots and planning together and figuring out how we can defend Matt and, putting our hands in the middle and be like, all right, Matt on 3. Just not true. It's just a fun night. I had a blast. I had a blast talking to everyone like I do every single year. And it just so happened that the head coach of the Green Bay Packers was there and we talked some basketball.
So you don't feel like Matt LaFleur being there, just spending time with all you guys, which is something that he wouldn't normally do pretty much with anybody, right? You don't feel like that did anything for you, even like without you noticing in the back of your head, like, I'm sorry. Sorry, one second.
No, go for it.
So you don't think that like psychologically sticks in your head, like, wow, Matt LaFleur's hanging out with me. So you don't think you're less critical on him just because of that?
Hey friends, time to get our sleeper picks in for week 12. I'm going with a Sunday matchup that has a lot of implications in the AFC, Indianapolis and Kansas City. Let's kick it off right away. Travis Kelce, fewer than 49.5 receiving yards. He's been pretty good as of late, but I think Indianapolis is going to keep him in check. Patrick Mahomes, fewer than 271.5 passing yards. It's a lot of yards in the modern NFL. I know the Colts defense has been a little bit up and down, but I think they hold Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in check. And then on the flip side, Jonathan Taylor, this is a must win for Kansas City. They have to find a way to beat Indianapolis, and I think they'll do that by keeping Jonathan Taylor in check. So Travis Kelce, fewer than 49.5 receiving yards. Patrick Mahomes, fewer than 271.5 passing yards. And Jonathan Taylor, fewer than 88.5 rushing yards. Make sure that you get your picks in over at Sleeper. Plus, right now, you can get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code Packaday. Yes, a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code Packaday. Terms and conditions apply. Check out Sleeper for details. Available in over 25 states nationwide. So what are you waiting for? Get your picks in right now. Hey friends, I'm not sure how it works in your household, but for us, the 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. hour is absolute chaos. From kids coming home from school, picking up kids from after school, swim lessons, flag football, soccer practice, gymnastics, speed training, dropping off one kid, picking up another kid. It makes having fresh, really good meals a near impossibility. It felt unattainable. That was until I found Factor. Factor gives you the flexibility to have amazing meals without succumbing to a quick fast food option when you're short on time. Just 2 minutes in the microwave and you're done. Now you're fueled with a meal that supports the lifestyle that you're trying to keep up with. Factor has now doubled the size of their menu to 80 plus rotating weekly meals, and they've strengthened their existing GLP-1 support preference with high protein, calorie smart meals. They now have their healthiest menu yet, and eating clean is now so easy thanks to Factor. Factor's been a godsend for our meal planning and prepping and the ability to feed our kids fresh meals while constantly on the go. They are quick, simple, and so satisfying. And most importantly, the kids love them, and quite frankly, so do we. This week, I had their shredded chicken and their filet mignon, and both were absolutely incredible, perfectly seasoned. You guys are going to want to check these things out. The best part is you can head to factor75.com or click on the link below and use code PACKADAYFB50 to get 50% off your first Factor box, plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code PACKADAYFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off, plus free breakfast for 1 year. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. What are you waiting for? Get enrolled in Factor today and start enjoying those fresh meals. I can 1,000,000,000% understand the optics of that, a billion percent, no question about it. Listen, if I had a relationship with Matt, or if I'm like, was like to the point of defending him or whatever like that, I would have Matt on the show. I would have him on the pod. I would love to have Matt on the podcast and chat with him on the podcast. I don't have any of that relationship. And I think a lot of people, again, whether it's because I've blocked them or whatever, a lot of people have maybe checked out. I defended Matt quite aggressively early this season when they were 5-1-1 and people were calling for him to be fired at 5-1-1. At 5-3-1, if anybody, dared to tune in the last couple of weeks, and as my listeners would tell you, I've been extremely critical of Matt. And even this week, after the win against the Giants, critical. I asked Perry this week, I said, hey, I loved the situations that Matt put the Packers in this game. I thought offensively, from a play calling standpoint, he consistently put the team, same thing with Jeff Hafley on defense, in positions to be successful. I said, I question wholeheartedly after seeing, the same mistakes now in week 11 of, what is it, 6th, 7th year of coaching the team, we're seeing these same mistakes. Is he the coach that can get this team to stop making those same mistakes? And I think it's a very fair question to ask. And I will promise you, there will come a point in time, and I'm not there yet from like, oh, Matt needs to be fired right here and now. There will be a time where the talk needs to get louder of, hey, Matt needs, and that I will believe wholeheartedly that, all right, Matt, it's time to go. It's time and done for Matt. And I will have no issue whatsoever calling that out and saying, yeah, this is not good enough. I even said, obviously, this past week wasn't good enough. And I will continue to be critical of the things that I think are very fair to be critical of. Where I was over the top saying, all right, we need to settle down here, is when you're 5-1-1 for a coach that's had an incredible record throughout his career, and you're on top of the NFC North, I think at top of the NFC basically at the time, and we're calling for the coach to be fired. That's not the time or place for me, at least personally. And even now you see nationally where this is starting to get buzz, and you can go national account by national account. And they did not have an old fashioned with Matt LaFleur, and everyone to a T is saying like, this is crazy. Why are Packers fans talking about Matt LaFleur being fired as head coach? And what is this even about? So that's where I was at, but I will absolutely continue to be critical of the things that he needs to be, we should be critical of. And I'm still going to believe right now, I still think he's the best person for this job here and now. We'll see how I think the rest of the season is a perfect petri dish to play out. There's exceedingly high expectations for this team. You've got 5 division games left. You are on the precipice of either winning the North or being out of the playoffs entirely. And the difference between those things and what happens the rest of the year should absolutely shape pretty much everyone's viewpoint of how they view this team and how they view this coach. If they go, 1-4 in these 5 division games, miss out on the playoffs, or get in the first round and lose by 20 again or something like that, then yeah, there's a real conversation to be had. If they, go on this epic run through here, all right, well then Matt proved himself as well. And I think that the rest of the season is going to be the real litmus test. And we know anyway that the Packers aren't going to fire him midseason anyway. So to me, it's more of, I think the conversation was a little bit crazy and I called that out, but there's every right for Packers fans to be frustrated with a lot of the stuff that's going on with Matt and this team this year. I just think everything goes from 0 to 100, meaning it's either Matt needs to be coach of the year or Matt needs to be fired. Like they're winning and like, oh, he's the greatest coach, he should be coach of the year. Or it's not going great and it's like, oh, fire him, get rid of him, immediately move on. And that stuff is the stuff to me that quite frankly, always just like, can we just breathe and step back a bit and let this play out? And we're going to get our answer by the end of the year as to whether or not this coach is the right coach for the team or not.
I don't think it's as drastic as he's either coach of the year or he needs to be fired. I think people were just reading between the lines and like seeing how the course of the season was going. I think the Lions win was very impressive. I think that kind of had us all over the moon thinking, okay, we might actually be legit Super Bowl contenders. But almost every single win after that, we saw some big red flags. So I think his biggest issue right now is just being so conservative. We're running the ball again at a top 5 rate. I feel like Jacobs has been kind of inefficient this year because I think if I'm correct, he's running it at below league average right now, rushing per attempt.
Yeah, yes, he's, for all of his yards are after contact, so he's mostly doing fine. But the line in front of him is doing a very poor job. And yes, in totality, yes, they're below average running the football.
Yeah, I think I saw that he's getting hit before he even passes the line of scrimmage at a career high rate as well. But it's just too conservative at this point. Even the Giants game, it felt like he was more committed to establishing the run at one point than just letting Jordan Love air it out. And he's a $200 million quarterback. Like, it should not be this conservative. It should not take all this for him to start going for a different approach. And I really told myself it was the Philly game. The Philly game, I was convinced. I was like, all right, he's been criticized. This is the game that he's going to open up. He's going to open it up a lot more. That did not happen. So I don't think it needs to be so Matt LaFleur is the greatest coach or Matt LaFleur needs to be fired. I think people just want to see him stop playing scared. My perfect example would be the Dallas game. I feel like that version of Matt LaFleur that came out coaching that game was on a mission. And I don't know if it was the underdog mentality. I don't know if it was when he has expectations, if he plays more scared, more conservative, or what it is. But when we went into Dallas, I have to say that was one of the greatest playoff wins I've ever seen as a Packers fan. Nobody was giving us a chance. But, LaFleur came out confident. He even said that we're going to go down swinging. And that was some of the best play calling I think I've ever seen. I think we want that version of Matt LaFleur. We want him to run up. We want him to run up that score. We don't want him to be scared to run up that score. I feel like he's scared to run up that score sometimes. Like, I don't know what it is, but I think he wants to win by controlling the clock, being conservative, and just getting out of there. Like, we want a convincing win as Packers fans. We want to sit back and really think to ourselves, yeah, this team's legit. This team can make it all the way. Because I'll give it to the team. Had we caught those like 3 or 4 interceptions, it would be a lot closer of a game than it actually was. But still, 27-20 is pretty unacceptable, I would say.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you said whatsoever. I think if you're going to have little quips of scared money don't make money and all gas no brake, well, it would be nice if we saw that mentality of the team. I've said a lot of the same things. I don't think this team is playing the right brand of football for their DNA. And Aaron Nagler said something similar of like, stop coaching the team that you want and start coaching the team that you have. And you have a quarterback that wants to throw down the field. You have receivers that can win down the field. You've got a pass protecting offensive line for the most part. You don't have a run blocking offensive line, yet it seems like they're hell bent on trying to establish a run. Some of it's understandable because they're trying to get better looks for their passing attack, but you're not getting them. So you're going to have to figure out a different way to attack, which is possible, by the way, to attack down the field without having that running attack that you would ideally like. And I think we saw a little bit more of it in this Giants game, but I still think you have to have a little bit more of that mentality that, again, he's preached in the past, all gas, no brakes, scared money, don't make money, etc. We haven't seen a ton of that. And I think we obviously it's fair to ask to see the brand of football that we think that they are capable of, and at least maybe seeing a signature win where they can actually maybe win by a couple scores.
So I consider myself a fan first account. I think I'm fan centered. That's the approach that I always want to go. I care about what the fans have to say. I care about what the people have to say. So just one thing that I wanted to leave it here with was, this picture that you guys took. I just wanted to say, I feel like if I was a bigger account, let's say I had like 50,000 followers. Let's say I took a picture with Dontavian Wicks and I was always advocating highly, like, hey, this guy needs more run, and he's dropping the ball constantly, running the wrong route constantly. I think it would be a fair criticism for people to say, hey, this guy's hanging out with Dontavian Wicks. There's got to be some type of bias right there. Even if he doesn't see it himself, there's probably some type of bias. I think that picture that you guys took just had fans, especially in a frustrated moment, look at it that way. Like, you know what? These guys are hanging out with the coach. Whatever reason. It could have been the smallest thing. It could have been the biggest thing in the world. For whatever reason, that picture was taken. And I feel like, in a frustrated moment where everyone's feeling this type of way, like a lot of people are fire Matt LaFleur. And then like the other half of the fan base is, no, we got to keep him. At the end of the day, it looks bad. It looks pretty bad. It looks pretty bad. And I think that's where the frustrations kind of flared. And that's where you guys get a lot of criticism towards that.
Yeah. And again, I understand it. Again, in the moment, again, nobody there even expected that moment to happen. And then, the picture was not like, I know it looks kind of like posed for or whatever, but it was all of a sudden like Aaron's like, say cheese, everyone. And then we didn't even know that was going to get put up on social media. So like the whole thing like happened in an insane amount of like warp speed time. And the interesting thing that you say, and I totally agree with your sentiment of it. One of the reasons, and I think what's important to kind of know of how I cover the team, I don't know if you know this, I grade every player on every single play, and I break down the tape and I do everything. I've actually gone out of my way. I don't do a lot of locker room stuff. I don't have connections. I don't have sources. I don't have agents that I work with. I don't have coaches that I work with. I don't have a single player or coach text, DM, or contact number for anyone within the organization other than Packers PR, who I have their email because I need to, talk credentials and things like that in the off season and whatnot. I don't have a single player, coach, GM, scout, or agents that I have any connection with whatsoever. I've specifically tried to keep it that way. I had one time I had a defensive back that I was DMing with. I had wrote an article about him saying that I thought the team was utilizing him incorrectly. And he DM'd me and he was like, oh my God, like, thank you so much for writing this. You're 100% right. This is incredible. Like, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and so on and so forth. I'm like, this is like a long time ago. And this is when I was first getting into it. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I had this cool connection. And then like a week later, like I gave him a bad grade in a game and he blocked me. I'm like, oh, so I did the Batman of like, oh, that's how that feels. But no, like, so really ever since that point, I've made it like almost to, I don't want any connections or anything because I want to be able to grade the players and I want to be able to analyze the coaches, players, etc., without any bias whatsoever. I don't want to have to go like, all right, well, I've got Dontavian Wicks coming up on my show on Wednesday night. So, better grade him better because I don't want to give him a huge negative grade and then have him come up on my show this week or whatever the case may be. I've literally tried my damnedest to make sure that I don't have to sort of deal with that stuff. So I understand the context of it extremely well. And again, I bet there are people in that room that even when what's going on, were like, I'm kind of uncomfortable with this. It didn't raise any flags to me at the time. It probably maybe should have. It didn't raise any flags to me at the time, just because I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. The coach of the team is there, and we're all just having a good time and whatever. But yeah, I totally understand the concept of it, 1,000,000%.
That's great. I think everybody just kind of wanted you guys to understand. That's all I think it really was. I mean, obviously there's some people that, take things a lot further than others, but I think overall, like, because I don't know if it was Nagler or who else, but I think they were downplaying it and making it seem like it was nothing. And maybe it is. Maybe it really genuinely is nothing. But it's like I had talked, like those perceived biases that you get, you might even get them subconsciously. Like just him
Yeah.
going there and doing that might make you feel a little bit better about that person. Like, oh man, coach showed up. Coach showed up. Wow. Like, let's not fire him.
Absolutely. It's not nothing. There absolutely can be that unconscious bias from, even knowing somebody. Again, for me, talking to him for 10 minutes about youth basketball did not change my opinion in any way, shape, or form of anything that actually happened. So I think that, okay, a couple of things. I'm in the same vein as you. I'm a Packers fan, and my biggest thing is I want this team to do well, and I want to enjoy watching them play football. And I told this story a couple of weeks ago. I was the biggest McCarthy guy. I thought he was going to lead them to a Super Bowl. I had a ton of faith in him. People in a very similar vein are like, he's never going to be able to win the big game. He's not a good enough coach. And I'm like, I really think he's good enough to win it. I was driving the McCarthy train the day that he got fired, when Mason Crosby missed the field goal against the Cardinals. I was at that game, and I was actively rooting for Mason Crosby to miss that field goal because I knew the team needed a change. And I just had a feeling if Mason made that field goal, and that game I think would have gone to overtime, and if they won that game, and all of a sudden Aaron goes on this unbelievable run of he just, RELAX style run, or run the table sort of run. And all of a sudden Mike's going to be back the next year, and they're going to run it. It was just so insanely obvious that everyone just needed a change, that it needed a change of pace. And that's going to probably have everyone in this league, whether it's a coach, a player, a GM, etc., gets hired to eventually get fired or cut or traded or released, etc. And there's going to come a point in time where I feel the exact same way about Matt in all likelihood. I hope not. I hope he goes on to have a Belichickian career and has like 7 Super Bowls. That'd be great. But I want this team to be successful as well. And so we're in lockstep. I just think sometimes, and again, we're all in a different form of fandom of some people want that aggressive, hey, let's rip the Band-Aid. We got to do something new. And others are like, hey, let's let this breathe a little bit and let a coach that's had a lot of success in this league, maybe not the playoff success that any of us would like, but a lot of success in this league, try to figure it out. And if he can't, all right, let's have a conversation at that point. So no, I understand, again, the optics of it, but I'm in the same boat. I want this team to be extremely successful, and I'm a fan of it. And I want to see this team do whatever it takes to get to where they need to be a Super Bowl contender year in and year out.
I think there's a big difference kind of here. I do, but like, obviously we're all Packers fans at the end of the day. But also another thing that kind of factors, and I'm just pointing it out. This might be another reason that people kind of view you guys a little bit different. While we're all Packers fans, we're Packers fans, and we're just talking about the team. You're getting paid for it. Cheesehead TV is getting paid for it. A lot of you guys are getting paid for it. So I feel like, along with that picture of the coach and everything else, you just start looking deeply in it, and you're like, you know what? It's not completely insane to say that some of the things that they say are to bring in more views or something along those lines. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people might see it that way.
So I think there's an interesting distinction as well. I think this is not a trick question by any means, but when you say we're paid for this, by whom are you thinking is paying us? Just to be clear.
I actually don't know who or what is paying you.
Honestly, this is one of the reasons why I think there's so much of this misconception out there. Cheesehead TV and myself at Packaday Podcast, different entities, by the way. We're like kind of sister type companies, but not actually related. I'll just speak to myself. I don't know exactly from a Cheesehead TV standpoint, but for me, how I get paid is I get paid through ad revenue and ad revenue alone. So just to be crystal clear, I don't get anything from the Green Bay Packers. I don't get anything from when I say advertising revenue on the audio side. I'm with a network called Blue Wire, which is like if CBS is like a TV network, Blue Wire is like a podcasting network, and they get a bunch of shows in, and then they go to different podcasting different price or like different partners, and then they can sell to a bunch. Say, hey, we've got 100 podcasts or like 1,000 podcasts, and you would get to put your advertising on all of these podcasts rather than me just trying to go and say, hey, do you want to just be on Packaday? So I'm part of a network from with Bluetooth on the audio side. And then on YouTube, I am getting paid through their YouTube partner program. And then I obviously have some connections with Habba Shabba Shortier and Luigi's Pizza, where I get some advertising revenue that I sold myself and worked with those partnerships myself on those. That is my ad revenue. So my ad revenue is completely tied on the audio side and on the video side to viewership. Now, there's two ways that you can look at that. All right. Number one is, all right, so his pay is totally based on view numbers. So if he says something that is controversial or clickbaity or whatever, he's going to get more views. You're not wrong. That is a lot. That is how it works, and that is how a lot of people do it. I would hope that if anyone listens to me regularly, watches me regularly, man, I stay away from as much of the clickbait and stuff. Or honestly, sometimes I try to take the clickbait and throw it on its head and say, all right, here's what's being talked about from a clickbait standpoint. Let's break it down in great detail for real and things like that. But I just want to be clear of like, if it's not for the listeners and the viewers of what I do, I don't have a base of revenue from anything else. Bleacher Report, I have a small little thing that I do these little videos for. That's the only other thing. So just to be, totally clear, there's not anybody that's paying me for my takes. It's really the audience that I generate by giving what I try to have as, genuine, authentic Packers takes. And if they are great, awesome, and people are going to come back and listen to more. And if they're not, if they're crap, people are going to stop listening and not make Packaday part of their routine anymore, which is going to eventually make it so that I don't have that ability to generate revenue. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, I understand that. I think the point of what I was just telling you with this last question and the previous questions was I just wanted to show you the perspective that the average person on Twitter or anywhere else that consumes your content, many other people's contents, the bigger creators, that's just kind of the perspective of how we see it. Like, oh, these guys are getting paid, coach is there. So I feel like the criticisms are valid. I feel like they are valid. Like whether it's true or not, or whether you clickbait or not, I feel like at the end of the day, I feel like everyone's perspective is valid on how they look at it. I don't think anything less of you or anyone else, like of the big creators, because they make money off of this. I think the only criticism that I really have is that I feel like you guys do defend Matt LaFleur a little bit too much. I feel like you guys are easier on him than he deserves.
And I think to me, and I understand the optics of it. To me, at least personally, all I can do is speak for myself. I would be, if that picture never existed, if I never met Matt in person, I would be saying the exact same things. There's been nothing that's changed. And you can argue maybe I do defend Matt too much. Again, I think I've been critical of him, especially as of late, especially over these past few weeks, a little bit more. I've certainly been critical of him in the past when I felt like it's been necessary. I still think he's a really good coach. I still think he's capable of leading this team. But I think there are cracks in the foundation right now. And if they don't get those corrected, I do think it's probably going to go, sour before it gets better. And so I'm watching it and monitoring it extremely close. I just don't think that would have changed anything whatsoever. But again, I understand the optics of it. The other thing I just want to touch base on what I was from way earlier. And then I, want to get to some of you. Obviously, if you have other questions, great. But I want to ask you a couple of things as well.
For sure.
One of the things that I think also goes a little bit unnoticed and that I think is really, really important to differentiate is I feel like a lot of Packers media gets thrown together in one big, sort of tub together circle. When there's a lot of different ways to cover this team. I think the first thing that needs to be recognized is, so people will say like, oh, the beat, or the people that cover the Packers full time, like they're being way too generous on Matt LaFleur. I am not a beat writer. I kind of pseudo am one a little bit more in training camp, but even then, not really. A beat writer is somebody who covers the team as a reporter full time, goes on the road when they're at the games, is covering them in their press conferences every day, goes to every single practice, et cetera, et cetera. I could do that. I have the credential to do that. I do not do that. That is not my cup of tea. That's not how I cover the team. Your beat writers are Rob Demovsky, Matt Schneidman, Pete Doherty, Ryan Wood, Jason Wilde, Bill Huber, Paul Brettel, although Bill and Paul do not go to the away games, but everything else is full beat writer. Wes Hodkiewicz, Mike Spofford. I'm probably missing a couple in there as well. Tom Silverstein. Like those are the beat guys. Those are the guys that are there every single day, no matter what, covering the team in the building, etc. All right. Then you have, and those are, by the way, what I would consider unbiased. I know Rob Demovsky's not a Packers fan. I know Ryan Wood's not a Packers fan. Pete Doherty's not a Packers fan. Like those are completely unbiased reporters. Paul Brettel is a Packers fan. That's maybe slightly different, but he's covering it like a beat reporter, but there might be a small difference there. The rest of the true beat guys, Matt Schneidman's not a Packers fan. Those are unbiased, true reporters covering the team in a beat reporter standpoint. You then have a variety of like what I would consider analysts, podcasters, bloggers, your Cheesehead TV's, Aaron Naglers, myself, Peter Bukowski and Locked On Packers. Some of which, like Aaron and myself, are credentialed as I'm through Packer Report credentialed. I'm not credentialed through Packaday Podcasts. Aaron is credentialed through iHeartMedia. He is not credentialed through Cheesehead TV. Those are common misconceptions as well. I do not have a credential through Packaday Podcast. Same thing with Aaron through Cheesehead TV. And then, Peter Bukowski, Locked On Packers, not credentialed. And then you have Zach Cruz, Packers Wire, Justice Mosqueda, Acme Packing Company. You have all of these sort of what I would consider like analysis sites and or reporting sites or blogs or, podcasts that are covered by people like myself, but are not actually beat writers. And all of us that I just named are fans of the team. We are fans of the team. So I just want to be clear of there are differentiators between traditional media and non-traditional media. And if you're looking for a truly unbiased, hey, I don't want somebody that's a fan of the team. I don't want somebody that's got any of that. Then Packers News, The Athletic, ESPN, those are the ones that you're going to want to go to as your source of information. I, as a credentialed media member, try to separate church and state as best as I can, where if I go in and I'm wearing that credential, my fandom dies 99% dies at the door. The 1% that stays is the 1% that stays with me of as a fan, what would I want reporter or the credentialed Andy Herman to ask or to find out? But all of the fandom just stops at the door and I become a professional. I become unbiased. But as soon as I'm home in front of my TV doing the podcast, etc., yeah, fan Andy is still there as well. So again, that's neither here nor there, but it's another misconception I see from a lot of people of everything is just grouped together into everybody covering the Packers. I'm more of defending the beat guys here because I think a lot of times people like myself, Nagler, Bukowski, Cruz, etc., get everyone views us as all the same when the beat guys are really doing a totally different service as non-fans of the team. And there is a very distinct difference between those groups of people.
I think it's valid because I myself have done that a fair amount of times. When I talk about the Cheesehead TV, I'm like, oh, Cheesehead TV, Andy Herman, etc. I have grouped you guys together a lot in my criticism and stuff, and I think a lot of people do as well. I think the biggest reason for that is probably because there's a sentiment that you guys share a similar feeling or kind of cover them in a similar way. It's very positive, pro Packers all the time, and I feel like nobody. I would say the bigger guys. I consider you the bigger guys because you guys have the biggest platforms right now. It seems like there's not enough criticism. I know the criticism has ramped up lately. I have been seeing more stuff from you, from Cheesehead TV, and you guys have been getting more critical as of lately. But that wasn't there when they were 5-1, and I feel like there was plenty of criticism that deserved to be thrown Matt's away at 5-1. The Cowboys shouldn't have been a tied game. It looks really bad as we go on when you watch these lesser teams just kind of either dominate the Cowboys or lose
For sure.
the game against the Saints. It just looks worse and worse. And we're sitting here at 5-1. A lot of the fans are being very critical week to week on either coaching situations or players that are playing. And it feels like that's downplayed by record. Like the rebuttal is we're 5-1. We're a great team. We're 5-2. We're a great team. It feels like it needs to get to the worst case scenario for there to finally be some decent criticism on this team or coaching staff or players. And that's where people get frustrated.
Yeah. And I can only speak for myself, but to me, just what we've seen throughout the season, and I agree. I don't think Cleveland, Dallas, certainly those games have not aged well. The way that the Dallas game ended was brutal. The way that they did not, have a really cohesive attack against Cleveland. For a team that's, for the most part, again, had success under Matt and is at 5-1-1 at the time, and yeah, having their fair share of struggles, rightfully so. People had every right to be frustrated with those struggles. I don't have any issue with that take on it whatsoever. I think the level of like Matt needs to be fired at that point. That's where I fought back and said, that's absurd. You had every right to be frustrated. The other thing is that, like, even right now, as I look at it, and again, I don't think Green Bay is where they need to be. I think this is a disappointing effort so far from this Green Bay Packers team. And that starts with Matt. Like, no two ways around it. That starts and ends with Matt. I still think if you look around the league, every team has at least one win and every team has at least two losses. It's what have you done in the other 7 to 8 games that you've played? Green Bay's 5-1-1 in those other 7 games that they've played, besides the 1 win and 2 losses that literally every team in the league has. Everyone has a frustrating loss. Everyone's got a simple win. And then again, you've got, every team with 2 losses at this point. That's not to absolve any of the issues that have taken place with this Packers team, but it's just to say this has been one of those years where you can't take anything for granted. Good teams have lost to bad teams, and we're about to find out which teams separate them at the end. We both sat through a Super Bowl run with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback where that team started 8-6 on the season. And at that point where Mike was in his career, like, using the same thing, we would have been like, fire Mike. What are we doing here? Why? He's clearly not a Super Bowl coach. And they went on to win, I think, next 19 games or something at that point, including winning a Super Bowl. You don't know when that next thing's going to happen. And to me, that the conversation of firing Matt at that point in time still, to me, rings absurd, while also understanding that there is true criticism to be had, and he should not be immune to that criticism.
So I'll ask you, I know we got more stuff to talk about, so I'll ask you 2 more quick questions that we can carry on. So this is a personal one. Like, I know I said that I would get like a lot of people's comments on here, but we've been on here for a while. What do you think about my account, how I cover the Packers, and similar accounts that cover the Packers?
What would you consider a similar account? Let me ask you that first.
I would say anyone that's more hypercritical of the team.
I haven't taken like a full inventory. I've seen some of your stuff recently. I think there was, I forget, there was some stuff. Was it Edgerrin Cooper that you just pointed out playing really good football? I think there was on there. There was,
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was something else too, that you did like a film break. Yeah. There's a film breakdown too that you did. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I love that stuff. I think that there's absolutely a space for that. And I think that there is a ton of oxygen for that. As far as like the hypercritical stuff, there's certainly, and again, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because there absolutely is a lot of oxygen for that right now. There's a lot of fans that are feeling the exact same way that you are feeling and the way that you are covering the team. I think, and again, the difference here, honestly, might be 20 years of fandom. Winning football is really freaking hard, and expectations and meeting those expectations and just expecting, hey, you got Preston Smith, so it's now Super Bowl time. It doesn't quite work like that. And for me, I've said this before. And the funny thing is I always try to stay as even keel as possible. If this team was 13 or whatever, 10-0 right now, 11-0, whatever, and I saw some of these exact same flaws that were happening, there would be a lot of people that would be telling me right now, Andy, you are far too negative. This team's 11-0. And I would be pointing out, yeah, they just had 7 drops this past week. Yeah, they just had, 4 dropped interceptions on defense. They had a play where 2 wide receivers ran into each other, a tight end and a running back ran into each other on the same play. And then Jordan Love still found a way to get it to Romeo Doubs, and Romeo Doubs dropped the pass. Like, this offensive line is nowhere near playing good enough. If this team was 11-0, I would be the one that's like, hey, pointing out some of the stuff that's going on because it's realistic and saying, you need to be focusing in on this. This is not a team that right now is capable of winning a Super Bowl, despite the fact that they're 11-0, and everyone else would be like, yeah, but they're 11-0. And at the same time of like, if this team was, well, I'm not going to put it the other way, because if this team was like 3-7, I'd probably be on the bandwagon too of being like, yep, nuke it all, get it the hell out of here. We need to try something different, or at least it would be much closer to that. But I try not to ride the wave too much, because we are so locked in the week to week. And I'm totally missing your question, which I'll get back to, I promise. But we're so ingrained in the week to week of what just happened. And like, even this week, I feel like there's more forgiveness for the Packers for their 27-20 win. I've even been accused of being too negative about a win this week, when I didn't think that was a good performance at all from Green Bay this past week. So I just try to step away and say, where is this team at overall? I don't think they're good enough overall right now. I think they're destined to be probably a 1 or 2 and done playoff team, if I'm being totally transparent about it, which is going to suck. And it's going to be really disappointing. But I think there's an oxygen for what you're doing. It's not my particular brand of vodka, just as maybe yours isn't some of the stuff that I do, but that doesn't make it bad or different. And again, one of the main reasons I wanted to have it on is because we're just Packers fans that all want to see this team succeed. And we just have different viewpoints on how the front office and management should go about attacking it, which, by the way, doesn't matter, because even if I think that they shouldn't fire Matt, they might fire Matt anyway. And even if you think they should fire Matt, they might not fire Matt anyway. So to me, it's all fun conversation. And I appreciate a lot of the stuff that you are doing.
No, thanks. I respect that. I just wanted to know because, just curiosity of what, the bigger accounts think of people who are a little bit more hypercritical. I think my next question would be, obviously, making a move to first rounders for a player such as Micah Parsons comes with immediate expectations.
Yep.
That this team's trying to win a Super Bowl. We're trying to win now. Yep. The window's open probably for the next, let's say, 4 or 5 years, realistically, because then we're going to get some salary cap issues after that, likely. Matt LaFleur had a Hall of Fame quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, and he had a Hall of Fame wide receiver in Davante Adams. He couldn't get it done with 2 of the best players in NFL history. What makes you think that he's going to take this team to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, right now, I don't think he's going to take his team to the Super Bowl is probably my most honest answer. I think they have a very large hurdle. I think the NFC is very, very difficult. And I don't think the particular brand of football they're playing is good enough to make a 3 or 4 game win streak through to win a Super Bowl. I don't think, I'm not saying they can't get there by any means, but certainly if I'm betting on it, I don't think that they can, or at least not the way they're playing right now. My overall answer to that would be, I think a lot of people point to, well, you had Bakhtiari and Lindsley and Adams and Rodgers, etc. Like you had this team in 2019 and 2020, maybe even 2021, that was so good. And look, like Matt was a benefactor or a beneficiary of having all those players. And there's a level of truth to that. I don't think Matt, and then again, if you want to really go back to the photo and me, just defending Matt no matter what, I don't think Matt gets enough credit for where that team was right before. That team was floundering. Rodgers was not playing good football right before Matt got to Green Bay, and Matt came in, and I thought he did a tremendous job of getting buy-in from a quarterback who is not easy to get buy-in from, met him halfway, let Aaron still run a lot of his stuff while trying to put in his own kind of offense as a very first-time head coach, never being a head coach anywhere before, and coming in and getting, really good play in 19. They overachieve. They go to an NFC championship game. And then in 2020 and 2021, really get Aaron again playing at an MVP level in back-to-back seasons, which again, before that and after that, after Matt, after he's been away from Matt, now he's older, whatever, but that has not been the Rodgers that we have seen. So I think Matt deserves a lot of credit for what he did with those teams, but he fell short. And it's going to be something that sticks with him for the entirety of his coaching career, where every fan, and maybe rightfully so, has the right to ask and question, can Matt win the big game? Can he get them to a Super Bowl? And the ultimate answer to your question is, until he proves that he can win a until he wins the Super Bowl, that's going to hang over him forever. I mean, it's still hanging over Dan Marino. Dan Marino is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and he still lives to this day with like, yep, never won the big one though. So yeah, it will carry with him forever until he wins the Super Bowl. And if he doesn't, that will stick with him forever as well. So right now, I don't think this team has the what it takes to go on that run. Do I think Matt could eventually get this team there? I do, but I think they're going to have to put a lot more into the attention to details if this team wants to get where they want to go.
So how long is the leash? How long are we supposed to just wait here and just hope and pray that Matt LaFleur all of a sudden gets it together? He's had a while. He's had a long time. And sure. Like I agree with you. He does deserve credit. I don't think it was all Rodgers. Yeah, Rodgers is great, but yeah, we saw him during the Mike McCarthy era. It was starting to fall apart. So I do give credit to Matt. And honestly, this is the first year I've genuinely sat down and been this critical over him. Ironically, it's the first year that I'm actually, putting out content at all. So, it might seem like I've always hated Matt. It's not the case. I've always thought he was a legit coach. I thought he should have won some coach of the years, or at least one, in his tenure. But how long is the leash? How long are we just supposed to sit here and say, you know what, Matt could win it?
That is entirely up to the eye of the beholder, which is going to be different for everyone, which again is the cool thing, the cool aspect of this. To me, and kind of as I mentioned earlier, the rest of the season's a great litmus test for where this team is at. If this team doesn't make the playoffs and any sort of signs of the locker room are gone, or that they have not responded to his coaching, it is a very fair question to say, do they need to go in a different direction to get a new chef in the kitchen to try to get this going in a different direction? If they are one and done in the playoffs, I think he's back, but at least I can understand the question a little bit more of like, hey, does he have what it takes to get this particular team to play at the level that they need to play at? That's where I'm at. And hopefully they just go on a big win streak and do great. And then it's a non-factor and it's a non-question he's going to be back. If just putting it in Ed Policy's plate for a moment, I think the only thing that would get them to move on from Matt would be a big losing streak, not making the playoffs and losing the locker room. I think if that happens, it's a no-brainer. He's gone. I think, again, just missing the playoffs, but the locker room loves him, or going one and done in the playoffs and the locker room loves him. My guess is he's back, but he gets a 1-year lame ass extension that doesn't actually mean anything. And he's coaching for his job next year would be my guess. And then I think any NFC championship appearance or beyond that, it's just, he's unequivocally back for better or worse. As far as for each fan and what they want, yeah, if you want him gone, then, you're starting, I don't know if you want to cheer against your team, but you're going to probably need.
I can't ever do that.
Yeah, you're going to probably need some losses, and you're probably going to need something to go catastrophically wrong, because I don't think anything outside of the scenarios I just mentioned are where he's going to lose his job. And then I think, but either way, barring a Super Bowl win this year, I think it gets really interesting as to what that extension looks like and what sort of seat he's on next year. Because if he doesn't get it done this year, and if he falls like one and done in the playoffs, or maybe they win a cheapy wild card game but get blown away in the divisional game and they're clearly not close, I think all eyes, fans, front office, everyone are going to be dead set on Matt LaFleur and of like, this is it. 2026 is the year. Go out and win it, or there are potentially going to be problems. So, but I think, again, that's up to each fan to decide for themselves of where they're at in the Matt LaFleur experience.
Oh, yeah. I respectfully have to disagree. I feel like if he goes one and done in the playoffs, I feel like that should be enough, because I feel like, well, obviously they added a 7 seed. The 7 seed has been around for the last couple of years. Had that 7 seed not been added, the Packers would have missed the playoffs both years. Then I feel like a lot of people would be singing a different tune than they are now. I feel like that 7 seed has covered a lot of it.
It's a very fair point. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. It's a very fair point. And yeah, again, if it's one and done in the playoffs, depending on how that goes, depending on what led up to this, if they go like undefeated between now and the playoffs and then go one and done, that has a different connotation than crawling into the 7th seed, barely getting in with a win over a Minnesota team that has nothing to play for in the final week of the season, and then losing by 20 to whatever playoff team. Again, that there's almost differences there as well. So, there's a difference between if they're healthy and if, like, they're down 5 premier starters as well. So I'm intrigued by it. But again, I'll go back to saying what I said before. I think we're going to learn a crap ton about the mettle of this team and about this coach in the next, 7-8 regular season games, and the hopefully the playoff games that follow that.
Well, those are it for my questions. I want to give you the opportunity, obviously, because you said you had questions for me as well.
Yeah. We ended up covering a lot of it just kind of throughout the course of the show. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but a couple things. And I think one of the cool questions that I wanted to ask you is, let's flip positions for a moment. You're in my shoes. Or maybe the better way to ask it is, how would you like to see me cover the team differently?
You know what? How I would like to see you cover the team differently is, I feel like there's nobody out there really letting all the fan voices just kind of express their opinion. And going back to, one of the biggest things that they asked me in the comment section is, why does Andy block everybody that disagrees with him? I feel like that opposite opinion that a lot of people have just wants to be voiced more and like heard more and kind of validated. So I'm not sure if it's something that you do on your podcast, but I encourage any big creator to not just try to diminish what everybody's saying, just because that they have a hypercritical view or because they're being really critical. I feel like it's fair to let everybody say what they have to say, whether it's positive or negative. And I feel like what a lot of people do, like the bigger creators, is I feel like, because I remember you made a comment and it kind of stuck with me. You said, we don't need an Ike 2.0. And I looked at it, and ironically, shout out to Ike, but they actually went into my comment section and they said, keep doing what you're doing, which was very positive. And, think what you think of Ike. I appreciate, that little words of encouragement, because I know that I'm kind of doing the opposite, of what a lot of people want to hear or what they think is good content, which is fair, because, I'm really just putting my opinions out there. That's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to be anybody. I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to rage bait or anything. But I feel like when you do have that opposite opinion, a lot of people say you're Ike 2.0. And a lot of times you're not trying to be Ike 2.0, because, while Ike does put out a lot of rage bait, and I got to say, like, they do. I feel like they do put out some stuff that's pretty critical and objective. And I'm like, you know what? That's not bad. That's not bad. But, a lot of people are putting this account down or other accounts like this down because they don't think it's good content or it doesn't fit their narrative. So I feel like, if anything that you could do better, or, anyone can do better that has a platform, because I wouldn't consider my platform very big, let the fans voice their opinions respectfully, whether they have a disagreement or not.
Yep. No, and I don't disagree with anything that you just said, in the fact that I do think, again, the cool thing is, I think everyone does have a voice. One of the things that I try to do, kind of as I mentioned earlier, is I have a bunch of different people on through the course of the week, national, local people that are, covering the team on a full-time basis, like a Paul Brettel. It's, kind of more of a beat guy. And then, obviously guys like Justice Mosqueda, Carmen Vitale, et cetera. But hopefully me bringing you on and having you have some time to kind of be, if you want to consider it the voice of the voiceless, or just maybe a voice of a minority of the fans, or however you want to view it, just know, I think that there is room for fandom in any way that anybody wants to fan. The only thing that turns me off, and I talked about it earlier with the block thing and things like that, is either the constant negativity where there's nothing that the Packers can ever do good enough that's going to reach the expectation or reach the level of like, oh yeah, they did a good job. Or again, when it becomes personal attacks and things like that, where again, part of that comes with the gig. I understand it, but at some point it's just like, I don't need to hear that on a day-to-day basis. Other than that, to me, everything is fair game. And I start by maybe I don't start by saying this every day, but I say this a lot. There is a lot that I'm going to get wrong in what I'm doing. There's been a lot that I've been wrong about before. There's going to be a lot that I'm wrong about again. I am not the gatekeeper or be all end all of all Packers takes. And I think the more opportunity that people have to voice what's going on, that's going to make all of us as Packers fans a little bit smarter and a little bit better. Even if we disagree, when we disagree, it then has the ability to either poke holes in some of the things that we think we believe, and then we can go back and question, hey, should I be believing in that thing in the first place? Or it has the ability to strengthen my belief and being like, hey, yeah, even after going through this and hearing the other point of view, I'm even more strengthened in the fact that I believe this or believe that or whatever. Doesn't make it right or wrong, but I think it's good conjecture. It's good conversation. And the number one thing, just to maybe end with this too, is what I really don't want is, I don't want to tell you that you should believe that Matt LaFleur should be the head coach of this team and that Matt LaFleur is great. I want to lay out what I think, and here's what I believe, and then here's maybe the opposite view of that. And then you as the fan get to decide if I'm full of crap, if you don't want to believe what I have to say, or if you're like, yeah, he's making some good points, or just to see both sides of it. And then you go do what you want. If you still want Matt fired, by all means, go for it. Go have fun. And if you're like, yeah, maybe Andy was right, maybe Matt shouldn't be, maybe he's doing a good job. Awesome, great. Doesn't mean he's not going to get fired in the next couple of months, depending on what happens from here on out anyway. So I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you, seeing or providing that different viewpoint. And I think there is a ton of value in that.
No, yeah, that's what I wanted to just bring out on the show.
I appreciate that. I had a couple other things here. I don't know if we didn't get to any of these. Let's see here. I think those were the questions that I had for you, but just really quick before we get out of here, I know we've been here for a while, but Packers-Vikings, what are you looking forward to this weekend, and what is your prediction for the rest of the season?
Packers-Vikings, I have a hard time imagining that we lose that game. It's at home, correct? Is that game at home?
Yep.
Yeah, that game's at home. JJ McCarthy hasn't looked very great. He just threw a bunch of interceptions. It would be hard to really see the Vikings walking into Lambeau, especially what I do feel like that pressure is on Matt right now. So I feel like what I want to see this game is I want to see Jordan Love throw that ball more. And I think we might not have Jacobs. So by default, I think we're going to have to approach the game differently either way. I was liking a lot of what I was seeing in the Giants game. It seemed like they were opening up the playbook a lot more. It seems like they were throwing a lot more. Obviously, the drops got to get cleaned up. That's pretty bad. You never want to have that many drops per game. So I just want to see the ball. I want to see less of, I feel like the split is like 60% runs. I want to see the run rate go down to like maybe like 40-45%. It doesn't even have to be that way. I think some games just call for more passing and other games call for more running. But I feel like every single game has been a carbon copy of the other this year, where you're just watching, we're running the ball 100 times a game. And, you could argue that Josh Jacobs got hurt like that too. You're running him into the ground in a way. You don't have, Emmanuel Wilson's solid. He's pretty solid. We don't know what Marshawn Lloyd is. Fortunately, he's had those injuries, so hopefully we get him back soon. But you are overusing Josh Jacobs. You got to give him a break. You can't just rely on him to go out there and have 1,000 touchdowns, like every single week. I think he's been one of the 3 running backs or one of the 2, something like that they're scoring like every single week. So I want to see a lot less Josh Jacobs usage, and that's not a diss to him at all. I just feel like we don't want to run him into a wall. And I feel like we drafted so many receivers. We have like 8 viable wide receivers on this team. Like, there's no reason that Matthew Golden should be getting 2 targets, 3 targets a game. There's just no reason to have all these weapons and not use them. So I want to see that utilized more. And, any win in a divisional win is accepted. We'll take whatever we have. But if we can go out there and we can have a convincing win against the Vikings, that would put the sentiment a lot higher than it currently is. Rest of season, I do feel like we end up with a good record. I feel like we win the majority. Hopefully, I'm not just being optimistic and it's an actual thing that, comes to fruition. But I think we win the majority of our games remaining. But I can't say that I see this team as a Super Bowl contender. And it sucks to say that because it feels like we wasted a year of contention in a way. But I don't see this team winning a Super Bowl. I would be happy if this team made a deep run, whether that's the divisional or the championship game. I would be really happy with that. But I just can't imagine. And even losing Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft was a huge loss. So, you're just seeing that in the corners. You can be as critical, both ways. You can say the corners are doing great. You can say the corners aren't good enough. I would struggle to imagine that Keyshawn Nixon being our CB2 or CB1, wherever you want to slot him. I have a hard time imagining that we're going to get to the Super Bowl with Keyshawn Nixon eventually shutting down whatever elite wide receiver that we have to play in the playoffs.
I hope you're wrong, but as we talked about earlier, I don't necessarily disagree that I think this team is just a little bit off right now, but they've got the rest of the season to try to get it together. And hopefully that starts this week in Minnesota. Should be a fun game. Hopefully they can pull out a win. I don't necessarily disagree with the Jacobs thing, especially when they've got a game on Thursday against the Lions right after that on a short turnaround. I think you're going to have to, try to spare him a little bit so you're not running him into the ground if he does play in this game, and make sure that he's ready for Detroit as well. But one game at a time. Try to get this win against Minnesota first. And, maybe they can start stacking some success, putting some wins together, and this team will surprise us in the playoffs and moving forward. Either way, should be fun to follow the rest of the year. Anything else that obviously I want to get to, anything you want to plug, but anything else that you want to get to before we get out of here?
I think I'm good. I think I said a lot of the things that I really had to say.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. It's been a ton of fun, and I think it's been very educational. Where can we find your work, and anything you want to plug on the way out?
Well, you can find me on Titletown Talks pretty much anywhere. I only post right now on Twitter. I've had some TikToks. I really just started this thing, so just seeing where I go. But you can find me anywhere on Titletown Talks. Just look up Titletown Talks anywhere if you're seeing this.
All right, follow him on social media at Titletown Talks. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL. That's going to do it for us today. Again, a huge thank you for coming on and talking through some of these things. We'll see you guys all very soon. But until next time,
can I say one more thing? Can I say one more thing?
Go for it.
My fault. I saw a lot of people looking forward to me coming on this show because I don't know. They probably thought that I wasn't going to do it, or that I was just going to come on here and be like rude or disrespectful. My intention is not that. And I want to clarify that I am not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to rattle anybody. No. I just hop on social media and I give what I feel or what I'm seeing from my perspective. I always want to be 100% authentic to what I do and what I'm saying. And my goal isn't to blow up. I don't care if I end up getting like 100K or 200K, or even if I capped out already like at 3,000 followers. I really just am on here having fun. And, if you like some of the stuff that I say, then I appreciate it. I appreciate to everyone who's followed me, to thus far. But, I want to cast light. I'm not this negative, like rage baiter. I'm not trying to antagonize anybody. I'm just a fan at the end of the day, like that loves this team. And, us as fans, we go through a lot more stuff than like people give us credit. They say, yeah, it's just a game. It is true. It is just a game. But a lot of us go back and, our friends are making fun of us, or a lot of us get emotional. I know people who cry after games. To this day, I can't go look at the highlights of the 2014 NFC Championship.
There's highlights in that game.
That's what I'm saying. I can't go look at that. It's emotional. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to me, just like it means a lot to you. And I am a fan of this team. I do care about this team. I just might be a little bit more critical than others. If that's not your cup of tea, I 1000% understand. I think there's so many creators on here that do a great job. Whether you want to consume what I give is completely up to you. And if you don't, that's okay. But I steer you in the direction of whoever you want to go listen, talk Packers. I want to, give a shout out to a lot of accounts kind of in the similar range as me, like BGPG. I think Relax does a great job. HCM is pretty funny. I think we all know Lime Volcano. If you know, you know. But, like everyone who does it, I encourage anybody and everybody who wants to talk about the Packers to do it, because at the end of the day, we're all just fans wanting the best for our team. And, maybe you give a better perspective than me or a better perspective than Andy. Like maybe someone will find your stuff like very unique or something along those lines. But I feel like we always can have more people coming on here and, giving their perspective. And I think that's fun. That's the fun of it. I'm just having fun. I just want to have fun with it. So, if you like my stuff, I appreciate you. And like I said already, to all my followers that have followed me to this point, anyone that's engaged with me, I appreciate you. Like every single one of you has meant so much to me.
We're in the same boat. Again, it's the Packers. We all love it. We're all passionate about it. And again, we all might have a slightly different take on it, but at the end of the day, it's fun, it's exciting, it's entertainment, it's drama, and we all love talking about it, engaging in it. And I appreciate you taking some time to engage with us today. Again, follow him at Titletown Talks. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL. That's going to do it for us today. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.